table to tell people to build an alternative is fine as long as you're in an area where you can get health services. But if you're closing something and I have no options for miles and I've got to wait on an alternative, what happens if I get sick or my child gets sick or there's something that happens in the community and we need immediate health services? So I think that it is easy for somebody that's got food in the refrigerator to tell somebody hungry, just wait until you can afford a better meal. They're hungry. Let's take a break. Well, I got to go. Thank you for your call, though, Jill. That's it. I'll still take a break, but I've got to get out of here. That's it. Let me thank my executive producer, Fatim Muhammad, my technical producer, Lee Majors. Don't forget tonight and every night, Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Central Time. Watch me on Politics Nation with Al Sharpton live on MSNBC. And remember, whatever you do, wherever you go, however you feel, tell somebody. Reverend Al told you personally, keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Keep it real. Keeping 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 it real.
The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of WGCV 620 AM, its staff or management, or our parent company, Glory Communications Incorporated.
Get ready. Armstrong Williams is up next on WGCV 620 AM, where knowledge is power.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
As long as I live.
As long as I live.
That moment, we arrived on the scene.
The storm had nearly destroyed the area.
This was our own community. Friends, family, people we grew up with, went to school with. We were there to help.
Several of us were working to rescue a family.
They made it down to the storm cellar, but the house collapsed on top of the cellar door and trapped
amid massive trees and debris.
We got them out.
We helped a lot of people out.
It felt good to know I could really make a difference.
Right here, close to home, in my state.
It was one of those life-changing moments where I realized I am making a difference in these people's lives.
I helped John get all the benefits he earned to help paralyzed.
Good God! I got to ask you what we need. Soul food. Give me soul food. No, we need it. Soul food. Give me soul food. No,
the sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get to Henry's at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.
Soul food. Henry's soul food. What we need. Soul food. Henry's soul food.
Welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show, brought to you by Golden Crust Bakery, the fastest growing Caribbean-owned franchise in the United States. Golden Crust is committed to the delivery of quality food and excellent customer service. Visit them today at goldencrustbakery.com. Welcome to another edition, a live edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Maxey, you're in the house. Hello, Maxey. I'm not hearing Maxey. That's not a good sign.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, sorry, Armstrong.
What a blessing to hear that voice.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yes. CW.
Yes, sir.
Not CW Network, but CW.
Charlton Woodyard II.
Oh, that's your name. I always wondered what CW stood for. Okay. So whenever you see CW, you know exactly what it stands for, Woodyard. So, Maxey, we want to talk about your generation of children. What is it that they want? What is it that they fear? CW is an entrepreneur. He said people yearn to be entrepreneurs. They yearn to be understood. They feel that many people are not willing to mentor them. They make promises that they cannot keep. They believe that mentoring is so important, and they just want to make a difference. CW, why don't you just tell us, what is it that your generation feel you're not getting from the generation before to help you in your pursuit of making America a better place for all of us?
Well, it seems like they don't want to necessarily pass down the resources. They'll give us the knowledge. We'll get speeches all day. But when it comes to time and actual preparation and helping us position ourselves to take advantage of certain opportunities, that is not always the case. I noticed in my own life, I've had different people come in and out of my life who have promised to help me develop my skill set and help me, take advantage of certain opportunities. But it's only come to be nothing at the end of the day, because either they're too busy or it's not enough money in it for them. Whatever the case may be, I just know as a young, determined young man, I feel like there should have been someone before today, to help me get to where I wanted to be.
Maxey, what do we do to prepare this generation for leadership, this generation for business, this generation for philanthropy, and this generation for ethics and integrity?
Well, first of all, I just want to respond to what he just said. I think that if you asked me the same question, I would say we're being taxed beyond repair. A young person today can't get a start anywhere, whether they have opportunities or not, because the taxation is so out of control. And that leads me to answer your question, which is, what can we do to prepare people to get into business, start small businesses, et cetera, become entrepreneurs? There's only one thing: get rid of taxing. We have got to lower the taxes and get back to what this country was built on.
There are barriers. Do you ever see the perspective that she just gave, CW, how they're being burdened and saddled with taxes and over-regulation, and they don't have the freedom to do the things they were once capable of doing? They're barely surviving.
That's definitely the case. I actually had an uncle of mine tell me, the days of the rich uncle is over. He was successful in real estate, but as you said, taxes and this economy has changed the complexion of even his role in my life. Again, he has become more busy, therefore has less time to help me prepare certain things that I'm trying to dive into, one being real estate. I recently just got my real estate license, and although he has extended himself as a mentor in the process, I know personally that he's a very busy person because he too has to put food on his plate.
But you know what? In spite of all that, the world that CW is speaking and the reality of what, Maxey, you're saying, there's still those who will always be fortunate, will always do well, no matter what the circumstances are, and they always find a way to give back and empower, no matter what their resources are, no matter what the government does.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look at that baseball player, I think, or football player that just gave $5 million to his alma mater. I think that's an example. I don't know what his salary was, but it was $20 million. He gave a fourth of his income that year to help the school which educated him. I think, there are levels of what we can give and what we can't give, and, that's a big part of it.
How does that play out in the larger market? Do you think that people really want to give? Are they just so afraid and so uncertain about where the market is going that they're just sort of holding on?
Is that for me there, Armstrong?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, I have a lot of really wealthy friends, 0.1% of the population, and then I have regular friends that, and then I have friends that aren't so wealthy. But I think growing up as a privileged person, I think that's not always the case. Just because you are privileged, you want to give back. And again, that example I just gave, I think it's up to the person. It's easy for somebody who's a billionaire to give away money because people will say, oh, well, they have money to burn, they have money to give. But it's how much, it's what and who they're giving it to. And, people, that goes for a person that makes $20,000 a year. They may give away $100. It's all relative. I think we have to be inside of a charitable community which is the way I live my life, where we have got to always be thinking about how we can improve our society and how we can give back. What's it for if you can't give back?
I agree. I think that one thing that we're neglecting, though, is, me being in this situation. I understand money is tight, but I've expressed to Mr. Williams here, sometimes it's not even about the money. It's just about the time and exposure to certain things. And I think that's, it's like having a single parent, you don't always have the time to do certain things, but if you drop your kid off at the baseball game and his practices, you would expect him to do greatly. But if you were actually there to help, encourage your child, it would be much more of a productive situation. So I really feel like sometimes it's a matter of time and care. And I know when it's not your child, you don't have the most time or money for that, so I just wanted to put that out there.
I agree with that.
The thing is, you don't believe in the concept that no matter how much training, how much mentoring you may get, how many lucks of the draw you may get, men always, where it really matters, must make their own path?
I definitely agree. I know for myself, I wouldn't even have, the opportunity to even be on this station today if I didn't prepare myself for something like this. So the onus is on the person. Again, you have to make sure that you are worthy of the opportunity. You have to put yourself in the position to get the opportunity, because there are opportunities out there. There are charitable organizations. There are websites. There's different ways in 2013 to come up with financing and to make your dreams happen. But again, you have to make sure that you do your due diligence. You can't put that on someone else, like a mentor.
Exactly.
How much should we value all the debt that young people accumulate these days in private schools and high school, and then college debt in college? Is it worth the investment by the time they pay it off, Maxey?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think education is up for grabs right now. I think, we've talked about it before, that Bill Bennett book, and then et cetera, things are being written about all the time. Well, what's it all for if the top two, major CEOs of these large corporations didn't even finish their college? We've had that conversation in the past. I think we don't have to have an education anymore to make something. This kid, this Tumblr or whatever that just sold this for $1.1 billion or whatever, this is the example. We are living in it's anybody's game right now.
And it is a game. And And sometimes young people are pawns in this game. Where do you see young people making a difference? Where do you think their voices are being heard more than where are their voices being heard and in which economy in this country?
I think that young people are being more appreciated, like she said, in the online platforms, stuff like social media, anything web or tech based, because that is of our generation. But it's interesting with the Tumblr kid. Again, he was a fortunate kid. He didn't come from humble beginnings. Not to take anything from him or what he's done, but I think that's a situation where he was groomed for a certain lifestyle or certain prowess, and he just happened to tap into his own abilities to achieve that.
Yeah, but I don't think that makes a difference. I think he, with his brain, could have easily maybe created the same setup. Again, I could be wrong, but I think we just find things out there. I think we're living in it's anybody's game in a much shorter period of time. Where you used to say to yourself, gosh, I've got to go to high school, get a diploma, apply to college, maybe get a master's, maybe get a PhD, and then be respected in these fields. Now you can just have an idea, and as long as you got the right path, you know.
I definitely agree. I definitely think that it's something that's, more of a recent phenomenon. I know that I went to college because, like you said, it just seemed like the thing that we did. You went to high school, you went to college, and unfortunately, I was privileged enough to have parents that sent me to a private school. Shout out to Georgetown Day School. But I want to definitely make sure that it's known that I am here because of hard work and anyone.
Hard work, discipline, Maxey.
Yes, I agree.
We'll be back. Our phone lines are open. Don't go away.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams. What does it mean to be conservative? Freedom of speech, freedom of free enterprise, freedom of assembly, less government, less taxes. As a matter of fact, a flat tax. Everyone should pay proportional tax. It doesn't matter whether you make $100 million or $10,000. Everyone should pay their 10%. Everyone should have something at stake in this American economy. I'm Armstrong Williams expressing what we mean by conservative traditional value.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the show. You know, I'm curious to whether or not, and Maxey, this is an interesting question for you and CW, whether or not it is an advantage for some poor kid working a part-time job, paying off other debt, trying to go to an Ivy League school. They come out, make a mediocre salary, and they still have the rise in debt. Is an Ivy League education, is it because you say you graduated from an Ivy League school, or what gives it the value? It's you that make the institution, not the institution making you. No different than what you do in the marketplace. It's not the marketplace. You've got to learn the skills to conquer the marketplace. And I'm just curious, what do you think colleges are teaching these days to prepare these kids for life and survival?
Do you want me to respond to that first?
Of course.
Okay. I think that's a great question. I've been asking myself. I have a son who's going to be going to college shortly, and I told him flat out, I said, the school you're going to now is more expensive than the college you will most likely be going to. However, if you choose to do well for these 4 years in high school, and then you are able to get in, that's part of it, get in with these, SAT scores, et cetera, that you've got to take today, and they've got to be pretty good to get into an Ivy League school, Armstrong. If you take these, you meet the requirements, and you get in, we're going to sit down and discuss if you're serious, because you're not going there to hang out and make friends and party and do whatever else, because we're not living in that world where we once were. Because the education is quadruple what it was even when I went there 20 years ago or whatever. And again, what does this really give you?
Charlton, I know that's a little perplexing for you. What are your thoughts from people you've talked to, the degrees and kids that did not pursue the academic, huh?
Well, I do have a few friends in Ivy League. I have friends on both ends of the spectrum, and it's interesting because it's about, to me, what you plan on doing with it, obviously. I have a friend who's actually at Harvard right now studying law, and it's obvious what he's going to do with it. He's going to practice. But also I have friends who did not pursue a college degree who are successful in their own regards. Some of them are creatives, so it's like they rely more on their talents than necessarily what they're learning in the classroom. But I know for myself, college has taught me the importance of networking and really understanding how to evaluate your own abilities and those around you to create a situation that is both profitable and fulfilling in terms of, what you want out of life. I know I've never attended an Ivy League, but having friends that go there, the contacts that you make there are supreme. And it's about the mindset and the ability to know that it takes discipline to get there. So it's serious people there, you know what I mean? So it kind of weaves out those who are just talking about it and to those who are actually about it. And that's my main thing that I've seen, at least from my perspective.
But Maxey, are these Ivy League schools living and sustaining themselves based on results that you can see in the current crop of children? Or is it just strictly based on reputation, perception?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think people are asking themselves that for the first time in a very long time. It used to just be a given that, oh no, if you went to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, et cetera, you were going to make, just as your guest CW said, connections, lifetime contacts that just really no one else could really imagine making, and that would then carry you forward into the future. And with those contacts, you would have business opportunities, et cetera, furthering educational opportunities. But today, that's not necessarily the case because, I think what those schools offer is funding opportunities with monies that are given to their history department, their medical departments, their whatever. That's unique. That versus a small community college, there's no comparison. I mean, Yale alone has one of the most unbelievable collections of art and papers and maps that is unparalleled in the world. So just that alone is something. But you have to say to yourself, what is that going to do for me?
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I definitely agree. I have, again, seen what it can do for you if you utilize it in your plan of life that you've had before. There's people who go through life assuming, again, that if I go to college and I will be successful in life. And I have friends, again, who went to Ivy League schools who aren't necessarily the most successful peoples by, whatever criteria you would want to go by, but they are still searching for their way almost. And you would think that, having attended these institutions, they would have their way already plotted out for them.
Exactly. I agree with that.
But obviously they don't. How much does you really think that you prepared your children for school and college outside the home environment, Maxey?
I didn't really prepare. I'll be honest with you. I didn't prepare my kids at all. I never said to my kids, hey, kids, you've got to get a perfect score. You've got to get an A, etc. I said, kids, let's see how it goes. I wasn't the greatest student, but I towed the line, and now here we are. Do meet the minimum requirements, please, and let's see what we're looking at. And after years went by, it was clear that one person out of my two kids, the IQ is higher, or tests differently, but the application may not be something that is better. So where the other child has been maybe not testing that well, but again has applied himself in boarding school where he is right now and is making straight A's and doing well, and it looks like he's going to be heading to college, and a good college maybe. But again, I don't think that I did anything other than providing a warm, nurturing environment, being a good parent, listening, trying to be positive, and being truthful and clear with my children. Other than that, I don't think I was the opposite, which is unusual, of the parent that shows up all the time and says, oh, go, you're number one, you're the best, oh, you got this. I'm not that kind of parent.
Well, I tell you this, there's something that is just not adding up for us as Americans when you look at the rest of the world putting us sort of in the rearview mirror where we can't even see in terms of the distance, in terms of education. And then what about STEMs? What about the science, the technology, the engineering, the math? How do we that's where the jobs are, CW?
I think that's definitely true. I mean, for us to not prepare our own future generations for the global economy, it seems kind of backwards considering we're supposed to be leading that charge. So at the same time, as an American, as a young student, I see where my value is on a global scale. I see the values that as a young American we do have certain things culturally that help us in a global market. One obvious thing being the fact that we speak English. Now, on a global scale, our language is something that is sought after. So that's just one thing that I definitely know that is an asset. But other than that, I think that our system is flawed and there's a disconnect because the numbers are showing it. If for other countries to be surpassing us is borderline ridiculous to me, and me as a proud American, I can't stand for it.
I wonder how important it has been for you, Maxey, to take your understanding and reading and traveling through reading to actually go to these places and have firsthand experience.
Yep. I think, having been educated through a master's degree and getting into a PhD program but not pursuing it, but still could go back to it one day if I felt like it. I think that traveling, working in another country as I did early on, also looking at what CW is saying, the global economy, that's not something that, I'm 46, that's not something when I was 18 or 22 anybody even discussed. I mean, they might have had the idea of it, but they did not discuss it. And so now it's just the first thing that rolls off your tongue. You just say, we've got to look at it, where we are as a country, as an economy, how we are fitting in, how we're going to, land on our feet, how English is going to stay the primary language, et cetera, all these things. And it's something, my 15-year-old, soon-to-be 18-year-old has to look at when he goes to college. he's going to find a job.
Do you know many people that are having problems, not just finding jobs, but creating their own businesses?
I actually have more friends having problems finding jobs than I do have friends creating their own businesses. Again, what we as the younger generation have in our pocket is the technology factor. So I have a lot of friends who have companies based on technologies that they provide a service to an older company who doesn't necessarily have that connection or see the value or have seen the value before, but they're able to present it in a logical way to show that they have a value. But I do have friends who have planned their whole life out to do X, Y, and Z, and now it's that time and they can't get that job. And there's a lot of them are getting creative. I have also friends who have taken the route of creating their own opportunities, and it's what has to happen right now in 2013, especially for a younger person, because if you are going to build your resume, you can't wait for that job, but you can show them stuff that you've done on your own, which is just equally as impressive. I've found to be for myself, and really honing in on the relationships that you already have and being able to monetize those. That's a skill that you need to practice young, because it will propel you, throughout life. At least I'm realizing that.
It will definitely prepare you, and plus it will give you the experience and the necessary wisdom. Does it bother you that many young people have no connection with the church or spiritual house these days? And it's certainly in many ways not being taught in the church, Maxey.
Yeah, it does. Again, Armstrong, I'm a little different than most people in that I kind of have an overall worldview of spirituality rather than a specific religion. But I will tell you this, every single day I connect to the Spirit and I try to do something inside of the community to give back.
We're coming back. Don't go away. Maxey, CW, and Dr. Gary Barnard will be joining us on the Armstrong Williams Show.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
We're now joined by Dr. Gary Barnard. Dr. Barnard, how are you?
I'm doing well, Armstrong. How are you doing?
Just fine. Explain to our listeners and our guests what attention deficit disorder is.
Attention deficit disorder?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, these days, at least in the DSM-4, which is a manual that is the current one, DSM-5 is about to come out, but it is now called Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and it is subtyped into 3 different subtypes. Actually, it could be 4 different subtypes. There's a sort of catch-all. And that would be predominantly an inattentive type. There's also a hyperactive impulsive type. There's a combined type that has inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. And then there's this 4th one that is not otherwise specified. It is a disorder that all the science, all the brain science points to. It's a brain-based disorder that has all sorts of other co-occurring problems that could be behavioral, psychological, emotional, that sort of thing. But it primarily is a problem with regulating, controlling attention when we're under demand to do so, and could also have symptoms of having a difficult time regulating impulse control. And that's mostly up in the frontal cortex, where there's sort of a braking mechanism so that we can put on the brakes, stop and think before we act. And folks that have this difficulty, if it's moderate to severe, have all kinds of problems with breaking rules and social norms, and our prisons are filled with them. They just have a very difficult time stopping and connecting past experiences with where they are at the current time and what the possible outcome could be. So that's a big part of it. It's a problem with dysregulation. We think most of it is inherited, at least a tendency to pump out of the synapses in the brain to primary neurotransmitters, these chemicals that are like keys that open up a receptor and send a message on to another part of the brain that helps control or manage everything, and that would be the front part of our brain. And if those 2 chemicals that are sort of connecting everything, if they're pumped out of the synapse too quickly, then we have sort of a break in the transmission and we lose our manager, our CEO of the brain is like out of town. And so these are people that get off task easily unless it's very exciting and stimulating. They may have trouble monitoring and controlling activity level, motor activity level, impulse control. And it's a very real problem. We can all debate and argue whether it's underdiagnosed, overdiagnosed, misdiagnosed. And I think in different places and at different times, it's probably all of those things. It's misdiagnosed. It might be overdiagnosed in some places and in some practices. But nevertheless, it's a real problem. We're real clear about that with the science.
Maxey, how do you respond from what you've listened to?
I understand it. Getting my master's in social work 20 years ago, I studied quite a bit about that. But again, it was much different. But still the SRIs or whatever, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and all those things that they hand out for these people to take and try to help them. And, as the doctor was saying, all these types of things that we have to look at today that we didn't necessarily have to back then. But again, how that is going to play out in job creation, job action, and also getting jobs, I don't know. I think I think people have got to take responsibility for themselves. And again, let's say you do have this, God bless you, but you've got to do something to improve it.
Well, I got to.
I'm with you there, Maxey. That's sort of the principle of everything that we have or could be. This is not a disease. It's not something we catch. If someone hasn't had some kind of brain damage, then we think there's a high incidence of inheritability. So we inherit a different type of brain. It is not an excuse. It's an explanation. And
exactly.
That might make it difficult for us, but we still must be responsible for our behaviors, choices, whatever. And it's a good point to bring up about employment. These are folks that left untreated or left where they don't put this in check and learn some other skills to overcome it or at least manage it better. They have abysmal records with employment and with accidents and with drug abuse and with all kinds of difficulties regulating their behavior. And it's really sad, but we're really talking about probably the moderate to high moderate all the way up to severe cases. It's on a continuum.
And I wonder,
we all have some of these things.
I wonder what part computers, television, gaming, access, immediate gratification plays in the development of these, diagnoses.
Yeah, well, I think that's a question that's being looked at from many different directions, and I think most of us that have been doing this 30 years or so believe that it plays a role. It doesn't cause this, but it's played a big role in this difficulty with this, 5 to 8% of the population, maybe, in some areas a little bit more, others less. But it also is a conditioning kind of thing for all of us, so that everyone now, it seems, has more of a challenge of bringing to bear their intention and what the immediate demand is for them, whether it's at work, paying attention, driving, whatever, because we have so many technological and other ways to stimulate the brain. So now there's huge competition, and it's hard to compete in schools and at workplace with what a computer can do and what the virtual world can do to stimulate or overstimulate us. And so there's no doubt it has a profound effect on our lives and on our brain and on the conditioning of our brain. How much? Well, these are things that are being looked at, and I'm happy that we're studying that, because I think it's just something that's with us now. It's going to be hard to go backwards.
Exactly.
What's at stake here? Because it seems as though this has been going on a long time.
Well, yeah, it's a good question. Be more specific when you say what's at stake.
You know what? Listen, I mean, all these names that we give to these new drugs and these new ailments didn't even exist before. People seem to have done real well. It seems like we've become a society dependent on drugs, so dependent on psychotherapy, psychological therapy, and everybody's got a pill for it, everybody's got a session for it, everybody's got a certain class, and all people are doing is using it to monetize, to make people continue to have these problems so they get paid.
Well, there's an aspect to that. I'll be the first to sign up on that one. That's something we need to all, as society, but especially clinicians, need to be very aware of and really come to grips with that and the fact that it is going on. There is secondary gain going on here, and it's people of all educational levels and people who are in the field of treating physical and mental illnesses or health issues can be conditioned to overprescribe, overuse, overdo a lot of things, and we really need to get that in check. On the other hand, these are things that have been with us forever. We have issues and incidences and stories in literature that go way back that describe these characteristics. These aren't new. We've called it different things. Since I began doing this in the 70s, it's changed 3 or 4 times what we call it. And way back, it was just called hyperkinetic disorder of childhood. Before that, minimal brain damage or dysfunction. In Great Britain, until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they didn't really view it as this at all. They viewed it as a sociological problem. It was a behavioral disorder, a moral issue. People just didn't know how to behave. We've come a long ways, but with that comes people trying to develop treatments, and then those things can be abused.
Maxey?
Yep, I agree with you, and I will throw something out there. I'm a Darwinian in a lot of ways, and I believe that looking at the small children of many of my friends, we often talk, we say, what are these iPads, iPods, cell phones, etc., all these games and things, what are they really doing to the brain? And then you stop and you think, well, they're doing something because everybody's got one and everybody's looking at it. And so what they're going to do, well, we're going to know in another 20 years what they did. And something good, I'm always the ever optimist, and I believe that something good will develop. Now, is it going to weed out certain people that'll make it sad and make it that these people like we're talking about that suffer from these things? Yes. But there will also be treatments, and there will be access, and there will be developments that will change it, and those that are the fittest will survive.
Hold there. We're coming back. CW, Maxey, and Dr. Garrett Barnard. Don't go away.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
CW, you wanted to add something to this conversation about when you were growing up and you could have been labeled designated at ADH. Talk about that.
Well, I was a hyper kid. I don't want to say over hyper or anything like that, but I was just energetic. You know what I mean? There's different kids have different personalities. But it was funny because actually I attended D.C. public school before attending Georgetown Day in 3rd grade. And once I transferred to Georgetown Day, I realized that there was something called ADD or ADHD. And at first I didn't understand it, but after a while I realized, like, hey, I might actually have this thing. So I had a conversation with my parents, and they pretty much shot it down. They did not, take me to the doctor to get diagnosed, anything like that. But my main thing is, as I grew up through the system of Georgetown Days, I saw that people were actually benefiting from it, from the drugs and actually from getting things like extended time and stuff like this. So for me, I always wondered, is it actually something that these people are dealing with on a level where they can't handle it, so they need these things? Or is it actually just a crutch or something that helped them in a situation? So I've always kind of been on both sides and wondering what could have been if I did get diagnosed. But today I'm a well-behaved human being. I am you know what I mean? I have no problems, no record, anything like that. So it's just an interesting conversation for us to have after all these years, me really wondering, do I have ADHD? Should I have gotten, proper treatment or whatever the case may be? I definitely would have benefited from extended time on any standardized tests and stuff like that. But I just appreciate you guys.
Bring up a good point, CW. See, many of us, if not most of us, would benefit from extended
definitely.
time. Yeah, so that's not really the issue in my view. The issue is this a developmentally inappropriate ability to regulate or control attention,
and
impulsivity, hyperactivity? And does it cause a functional impairment? Is it causing problems? Many people fit into this. Maybe most of us at
that's what I
different times
noticed.
fit into this continuum. But is it causing a sustained problems? If not, that should not be treated. It's just that simple. If it is, my gosh, we see how it can help people. So if managed properly, we ought to be willing to help people, whether it's this kind of disorder or a metabolic syndrome kind of disorder that leads to diabetes or whatever it is. If there are ways to help people manage that, teach them, educate them, help them even with medicines if they're appropriate and tolerable, then it seems like as a society we ought to offer that.
Well, I think Ms. Maxey had a very interesting point when she brought up the Darwinism. Again, like I said, I went to the D.C. public school, and I noticed that a lot of my classmates were very hyperactive. And, I lost contact with them, obviously, when I left the school. But I can see how their hyper energy could be perceived as disobedience. And once you keep hearing that you're bad, you develop this sense that I must be a bad seed. On the other hand, at Georgetown Day, these kids did receive the proper, medicine and, different attention medically. So I did see the benefits, but I wonder if it's because of the drugs and the medical attention or the overall situation. That's just me sitting here, 26-year-old Charlton. I really am looking back, trying to see, what was the issue and what was the solution.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I would say that it probably was a little bit of both, maybe a lot of both, maybe a lot one over the other, but it's going to have something to do with the context, the environment. There's no doubt about that. If you're around kids that are overstimulated and the structure is not effective in helping them to regulate that externally because they're not doing it internally, then that's going to stimulate and overstimulate other kids. That's just the way that is. And so that whole structure really matters. You go to a private school where it's smaller classrooms, a different set of norms, more than likely, different set of expectations, and if a kiddo's still having difficulties performing, I'm not saying they're still a little hyperactive or whatever. That can be manageable. But if they're having difficulty performing, let's say they're bright kids, cognitively very capable, don't have any big skill deficit, but they're underperforming miserably, then those are the kind of kids I think that we need to get a hold of and try to help out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, but you do make a case that there are instances where you feel this drug is needed.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind. From a person who studied the brain in terms of physiological psychology, a master's degree, and done brain surgeries on animals, and get the brain part. Of course, I don't prescribe medicines. I'm a clinical psychologist, and only in a few states in our country do my type of person get to do that. So I'm not pushing medicines. I'm saying it's never just one thing, though, but that can be an important part of a treatment.
And you're also identifying that people, this is affecting our productivity as our young people enter into the job market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there have been so many studies that show how productivity is affected that it's in the billions of dollars in terms of accidents, missing work, terrible family kinds of issues, all our penal system. It is overwhelming to look at those statistics. Here's another thing to think about, though. And in my latest blog, and I think I sent that to you, Armstrong, it's one thing to talk about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. How about intention deficit disorder? This is made up. I just made it up, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a real disorder.
Sounds good.
But just think about that. How about our intention? How many of us have a deficit or dysregulation of what our intentions are? We behave without really stopping and thinking, what is our intention? What is the intended consequence of our choices? See, I think many of us fit into that category. We really want to talk about a problem in our society. How about an intention deficit disorder? And that. I'm not trying to minimize these other childhood and adult problems and disorders, but this is a huge thing.
Very.
We don't stop and think. And part of what Maxey said earlier is probably a big causal factor, and that is we're bombarded constantly from every different direction. And so people's attention span is short. We move from one thing to the next, uncompleted activity and all these different things, and we worry about our kids. But what are adults doing? They're walking around trying to cross streets while they're texting or driving and texting and doing 3 or 4 or 5 things at one time. How can you be aware of what your intention is when you're making these choices? You're on automatic pilot, and you're on overload. Think about going back 50 or 60 years ago, 70 years ago, some of the bridges we had in our country, they were not engineered to handle some of the big rigs, the 18-wheelers and the big heavy loads that we have now. So what's going to happen if a number of those go across? It's going to start cracking under that kind of load. They weren't built with those tolerances in mind. Our brains are only built with certain tolerances. Can we change and adapt in a Darwinian sort of way? Yeah, I know we can. But I think we're dealing with information and overstimulation overload. And so intentions get lost. People don't think before they act.
Yep. I would agree with
much
that.
Agree. And I think we see it more with the younger generations because we have no other context other than what we have grown up in. And, when advertising, they say that a person's attention is 12 seconds on something. I think it's less than that, and that's no time. You know what I mean? So, the younger generations.
I think this has been a very necessary and critical discussion. Dr. Barnard, what is your webpage address?
www.thepower-parent.com.
Wow. And CW,
Great.
What's your email webpage address?
aviatedthoughts.com. AVI, the number 8, TED, thoughts.com.
And Maxey, we don't give out your digs, do we?
No, we do not.
And I respect that. I respect that, Maxey. You know I got
Thank
the drill
you,
down.
Armstrong.
I know you were wondering what I was about to say. Hey, look, we just don't do that with Maxey. And that's fine with us. Not a problem. Not a problem. Thank you, Dr. Barnard. Thank you, Maxey. Now, Maxey, where are you headed overseas?
I'm getting ready to go to Paris on Wednesday.
Taking
my kids.
Are you going to the French Open?
I may be lucky enough to see one little piece of that, yes, but I can't say 100%. That's not why I'm going. I'm taking my mother is taking my daughter and my son's friend because we're going on an educational trip like we always tend to do.
Isn't it wonderful to have a wonderful, loving mother?
Yeah.
Isn't that so special?
Thank you. Well, I love my family.
Especially those mothers that can take you to Paris every blue moon.
Have a good trip, Maxey.
I'm not mad at you, Maxey.
I know you're not.
I'm not mad at you. In fact, I'm right behind you.
I can't wait. Of course you are. That's where I always see you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Good luck.
Bye.
Talk to you. Bye.
Anyhow, thank you all so much for joining us. info@rightsidewire.com, www.rightsidewire.com. Shout out Twitter, Facebook at @RightSide, @RightSide. You don't ever remember to shout out. Your stuff is just at @RightSide. That's right. Visit us. Visit us. Join us for another edition tomorrow when Milo Pinckney will be back. Yes, Milo Pinckney's in the house. Wednesday, Logan Delaney. Thursday, the Elder Chicks. And Friday, we're live. Woo, baby. Whipping it up. Okay, everybody. Take care.
For more information